President Lai says it's Taiwan that's China's motherland, triggering outrage among some. But is it really that provocative?
就年纪来说，中华人民共和国是绝对不可能成为中华民国人民的祖国。
Israel marks 1 year since the deadly October 7th attack as the Middle East conflict escalates. 6 months on from a devastating earthquake, a local school in Taiwan's east fights to get students back. Plus, how Chinese winemakers are using new technology to help protect their industry from climate change. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Allies of President Lai Ching-te are jumping to his defense after he said Taiwan is older than China and therefore China cannot be its motherland. He made a comment at an event over the weekend, drawing an angry response from opposition lawmakers who called his words provocative. Louise Watt has more.
President Lai Ching-te hasn't been in the job for 6 months yet, but he's definitely not shying away from challenging China's view of Taiwan, particularly the notion that it's been part of China since ancient times. His latest comments to spark controversy came during a speech at a concert marking Taiwan's National Day. He said that the Republic of China, or ROC, Taiwan's official name, is older than Communist China.
就年纪来说，中华人民共和国是绝对不可能成为中华民国人民的祖国，反倒是中华民国可能是中华人民共和国75岁以上的民众的祖国。
Such comments have been criticized by opposition lawmakers, who say they're provocative to China, which sees Taiwan as its territory and could one day invade. But lawmakers from Lai's ruling party have defended him, saying he's simply using basic facts and logic to prove that the Republic of China, Taiwan, is separate from Beijing. Ryan Wu and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
For more analysis on Lai's speech, Tiffany Wong spoke to Chong Jia-yan, a political scientist at the National University of Singapore.
Could you tell me first, where are Lai's comments coming from, and are they in line with previous presidents' statements?
So Lai's comments really come from the very entangled history of Taiwan, the Republic of China, and the People's Republic of China. It also brings up questions of what you think China is or is not. So there is the view that the ROC, the Republic of China, established in 1912, predates the People's Republic of China, established in 1949. That is a historical fact. I think where Lai would be more similar to presidents really starting from Li Denghui in the 90s, but including Ma Ying-jeou, etc., would be to insist on Taiwan and so the Republic of China, Taiwan, being distinct and separate, not subordinate to the People's Republic of China. There tends to be confusion over the sort of formal name Republic of China, Taiwan, and China. They, China as a cultural and political entity, it pre-existed, before the ROC and the PRC came about. There was a China. It's just that the PRC today wants to claim that history.
One of the concerns about Lai as president was that he might make provocative statements towards China. Would you consider this one of them?
I don't think it's provocative, but I think there are two things going on. One is there is some confusion, and secondly, there has been an ongoing effort to paint Lai as provocative and dangerous by the PRC, but others as well. So where the confusion lies is I've seen a lot of the reporting surrounding Lai's speech saying that Taiwan is it's a statement about Taiwan sovereignty, and it's not and that Taiwan is not part of China, that he's rejecting China. So this gets to what I mentioned earlier about what you think China is. If you think China is exclusively the People's Republic of China, then by saying that Taiwan is not subordinate, I suppose one view would be to say, well, that's provocative to Beijing. But Beijing finds many things that they don't find consistent with their own narrative provocative.
Now, these were just comments that he made leading up to Taiwan's National Day. When can we expect a reaction from Beijing? And do you think that he'll continue to make these sort of statements at the actual National Day speech?
I think Lai will continue with these comments because they draw a line of consistency between himself and Tsai Ing-wen, and at least to Ma Ying-jeou, right? This non-mutual subordination between the ROC and the PRC, this idea that Taiwan is a distinct entity, which has truth to it insofar as Beijing does not rule Taiwan, it is unable to impose its writ on Taiwan, right? So that is an empirical fact. Now, to sort of draw that continuity also allows Lai to demonstrate that he is actually not being provocative. I think the bigger response will probably be to his double 10th National Day speech on October 10th, right? And that's perhaps when we will see a more fully formed response from Beijing and efforts to sort of really shape the narrative.
That was Chong Jia-yan from the National University of Singapore. Security officials in Taiwan say China is likely to use President Lai Ching-te's National Day speech this week as a pretext to hold military exercises. Senior officials say that regardless of what Lai says on October 10th, Beijing is likely to blame possible drills on Taiwan's president, who they view as a separatist. In May, China staged a mock blockade of Taiwan shortly after Lai's inauguration, dubbed Joint Sword 2024A. Taipei is watching for a possible Part B later this week. Former President Tsai Ing-wen will reportedly travel overseas this week for the first time since leaving office, heading to the Czech Republic. Sources who spoke on condition of anonymity said Tsai is planning to deliver speech at the Forum 2000 conference in Prague, an occasion to support democracy and human rights. It would be a sensitive trip for the former leader, who Beijing has repeatedly labeled a separatist. Tsai reportedly will spend 8 days in the Czech Republic and 2 other countries in Europe. Rallies and vigils are being held across the world to mark the 1-year anniversary of the October 7th attack on Israel that triggered the war in Gaza. From Tel Aviv and London to Paris and Berlin, thousands have gathered to remember the victims of the Hamas attack that left more than 1,000 dead and hundreds of others taken hostage. In Jerusalem, there were renewed calls for Israel's government to negotiate a release of the remaining hostages. The day has also been marked with multiple pro-Palestinian rallies. The conflict has killed nearly 42,000 people in Gaza and displaced nearly all of the 2.3 million people there. Here in Taipei, rallies and vigils have also been held, with some calling on Taiwan's government to stop sales of arms components to Israel and the U.S. 12 months on, the war between Israel and Hamas has only escalated, and fears are mounting of a wider conflict in the Middle East. Harel Hughes reports.
1 year after October 7th, kibbutz Nir Oz in southern Israel remains empty and in ruins. It was one of the first targets of Hamas militants when they crossed the border from Gaza, killing over 1,000 people and taking 250 hostage, in Israel's deadliest day ever.
Something broke inside of me on October 7th. I never believed this kind of cruelty and violence can later be justified as an act of freeing Palestine, because I believed in freeing Palestine my entire life, in two-state solution.
Israel's retaliation was swift, launching attacks on Gaza that have killed an estimated 42,000 Palestinians within the past year, leaving the enclave devastated and sparking a humanitarian crisis. The United Nations estimates 40% of the deaths in Gaza were children, including 5-year-old Sally, killed in an Israeli airstrike just days after October 7th.
كنت متوقع إنه بعد المعاناة اللي شفناها في أولها وبدايتها وسالي استشهاد سالي وهي في حضني كنا متوقعين إن الناس يعني العالم ينظروا لها نظرة شفقة نظرة إن الحرب تخلص يعني وهيك.
1 year later, Israeli leaders are facing accusations of genocide, and the conflict has now spread across Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, and Iran, with fears of all-out war on the horizon. Top diplomats are calling for diplomacy.
We meet at a time of high tension, risk of escalation in the region is acute, and I know that we are all very much focused on that. The best answer is diplomacy, and our coordinated efforts are vital to preventing further escalation and to paving the path to greater peace and stability.
Meanwhile, kibbutz Nir Oz in Israel remains empty, and residents may never return, as the memory of the violence of that day and the months following is too much to bear. And in Gaza, the humanitarian situation remains dire, as Palestinians wait for a peace that seems further away than ever. Scott Huang and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Israel has carried out its heaviest night of bombardment in Beirut since it began striking Lebanon last Monday. Israeli military officials say they struck Hezbollah intelligence and munition stores facilities in the Lebanese capital. Authorities in Beirut say the strikes killed 23 people and wounded another 93. Hezbollah says it launched missiles into the Israeli city of Haifa in retaliation, injuring 10 people. At least 2 Chinese nationals have been killed by an explosion near an international airport in Karachi in southern Pakistan. The separatist Baloch Liberation Army has claimed responsibility for the attack. The group says it targeted Chinese people who it says are exploiting Balochistan province. The Chinese embassy confirmed that 2 of its nationals working in the energy industry died in the explosion. At least 8 people were hurt, including Chinese and Pakistanis. It's been 6 months since an earthquake devastated much of Hualien County and other parts of eastern Taiwan. One of the area's largest schools, National Dong Hwa University, which suffered major damage from the quake and subsequent chemical fire, is now struggling to find students. Chris Goring reports.
Physics professor Guo Yonggang hasn't been able to work out of his research lab in National Dong Hwa University for the last 6 months. It was damaged in a massive earthquake that struck this part of eastern Taiwan, and his new lab has yet to be built.
Heartbroken. What can I say? I spent more than 26 years in this lab and all the equipment. And I just built out this lab and
one of the top academic and research institutions in Taiwan, Dong Hwa University was near the epicenter of the 7.2 quake that rocked the eastern part of the country in April, the strongest in 25 years. It killed at least 18 people and caused widespread damage across the region, including to Dong Hwa's chemistry building, now marked for demolition after a fire broke out, leaving it unusable. With the school year just starting, officials here are confident the remaining buildings are structurally sound, but they have other concerns. One of the biggest draws for students to this university is its open spaces and natural beauty. Now, the school says that its university is safe, but that meeting its enrollment goals for new students after the earthquake has been a challenge. The central government is chipping in for the school's repairs, including earthquake-resistant upgrades, theoretically making the school even safer than before. Not a single person on campus was sent to the hospital because of the earthquake in April. But since then, the school is 97 students short of a full freshman class this year.
This year, we got 97. 97 is really very painful, okay? It's pain now. You got a kind of feeling that you get hurt. But actually, we are talking about education. We are not supposed to talking about money, right? We need to let the future students know that. Don't worry about it. Just come to this university.
Current students seem convinced of the school's physical safety, but that may not be the only issue.
主要都是轻钢架跟管线的一些 坏掉的问题，对，然后瓷砖一些有剥落的状况，基本上整个学校是我认为是安全的。
反而是我是觉得身心健康反而才是比较重要的，就是人身安全可能还可以有保障，但是就是大家会对这地震可能又什么时候发生会有焦虑这样。
In spite of the uncertainties, few of the students and faculty here have any plans to leave. The repairs underway are expected to take another 3 to 5 years to complete. Like the rest of Hualien County, the university is on a path to recovery and hoping for fewer bumps ahead. Joseph Wu, Alec McDonald, and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Stay with us here on TaiwanPlus. Coming up after the break, opium withdrawal is hitting people in Afghanistan and its economy. Details in a moment.
Taiwan, a small but vibrant nation, is celebrating its 113th National Day. Witness the colourful festivities showcasing Taiwan's diversity and President Lai's National Day address. Complete with live interpretation. Join Betty Chen and Reese Ayres of the 113th National Day of the Republic of China, October 10th at 9 a.m. on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Taiwan's defense minister has confirmed there was a procedural flaw in buying pricey U.S.-made missiles in 2020. The sale amounting to over $560 million was initially signed without proper authorization. The budget only later approved by the legislature. The minister was questioned on this discrepancy as well as the recent overcharge by U.S. defense giant RTX. Joyce Tseng was there.
Taiwan's defense minister has come out to shed more light on a recent U.S. arms price gouging scandal in a confidential meeting with lawmakers, some of them asking whether it erodes Taiwan's all-important relationship with its largest arms supplier, the U.S. Defense Minister Wellington Koo had already previously stated that Taiwan will be paid back what it was overcharged by U.S. defense giant RTX, formerly known as Raytheon. And today, in the public portion of the briefing, the Defense Ministry affirming still strong U.S.-Taiwan ties, pointing to a recent fruitful defense conference in Philadelphia. But what we still don't know is just how much RTX overcharged Taiwan. There's been concerns about the multiple million-dollar price tags of RTX arms like the Patriot missile and long-range early warning radars, which also take over $1 billion to maintain. Pointing to potential co-production of military tech between the U.S. and Taiwan, opposition party lawmaker Ma Wen-jun asked Koo whether Taiwan would be getting the short end of the stick in this partnership.
我们希望台湾不要变成代工，把它做出来以后，再回到美国，美国再卖来台湾给我们，这样我们真的也是一个盘子。好，这个是我们可能料想到的可能发生的事情，在这里我们先提出来。
不是卖给我们吧，是打入国际吧？这应该是委员这样的讲，好像是有点讲的。没有，这个像部长。 我们希望它不要发生啊！如果我们自己已经可以帮他做，表示我们自己就可以做。你都已经要发展产业园区，你自己都已经科研出来的东西，如果我们帮人家代工，然后再去高价买回来，这样这是对不起国人的。
The worry among some lawmakers is that Taiwan will be taken advantage of. In this particular case, with RTX, Koo reminded that the contract is between Taiwan and the U.S., not Taiwan and RTX, putting the full responsibility on Washington to refund the full amount wrongfully taken from Taipei. Howard Zhang and Joyce Sun in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Reports are emerging of a gang massacre in Haiti that has claimed the life of at least 70 people. Armed gang members stormed a town in an agricultural region in the early hours of Thursday last week. Over 6,000 people were forced to flee their homes. A gang leader has claimed responsibility for the attack. Much of Haiti remains in the grip of criminal groups despite the attempts of an interim government to restore control. Last month, the UN committed to keeping international peacekeepers in Haiti for another year to help combat gang violence. Until recently, opium poppies were an important source of income for farmers in Afghanistan. But with the Taliban back in power and poppy cultivation banned, the country and its economy are feeling the effects of opium withdrawal. Bryn Thomas reports.
Things used to be easier for Afghan farmers like Asadullah. For much of the last 20 years, during the period spanning the U.S. occupation of his country, he harvested opium from the poppies he grew in his fields. When refined into heroin and sold on the black market, it provided a tidy living. Despite taxing opium to fund their two-decade insurgency, the Taliban began enforcing a long-standing ban on its cultivation about a year after retaking power in 2021. This resulted in a 95% drop in harvests in what was once the world's largest producer of the drug. It's a drop that's hit farmers hard and at times sparked violent protests, like in May, when clashes between poppy farmers and soldiers sent to destroy their fields resulted in several deaths in the northeast province of Badakhshan. The UN Office on Drugs and Crime says the poppy ban resulted in losses of over $1 billion for Afghan farmers last year. And while many have switched to legal crops like cotton, these don't pull in the same kind of money. Not everyone is content to follow the rules. Some Afghans, like this imam, keep a stash of opium from their final harvest hidden away for a rainy day. A fist-sized clump of resin, hidden like a wad of cash in a mattress, could cover the cost of a dowry or a wedding. Big financial burdens in a country where large families are the norm. But these illicit stashes of opium will eventually run dry, and the resulting hardship is already destabilizing the country. Videos on social media from May's clashes show farmers calling for an end to the Taliban government, one that their opium helped put in power. John Su and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
Chinese winemakers are experimenting with new tech to save their industry from climate change. Jonathan Kaplan has the story.
Purple grapes ripen on the vine, not in Bordeaux, Tuscany, or Napa, but in the northwest of China. This vineyard in Ningxia is at the heart of China's wine industry and efforts to protect it from a changing climate. This part of China is bitterly cold in winter, forcing growers to bury their vines to keep them safe. But winters are warming, leading farmers to question whether the grape varieties they use will hold up in the coming decades, as rising temperatures bring a different set of problems. For the head of this experimental farm, genetics could hold the key.
他就是想着通过杂交，将它的亲本、父本与母本的优良的性状，比方说我的父本，它的抗寒或抗旱性比较好一点，而我的母本呢，它的果实的品质或者说它酿出的酒的风味、口感更加让人愉悦。
The research backing up this crossbreeding program takes place in far-off Beijing, where labs use AI to speed up the process of evaluating up to 20,000 new genotypes per year. The lab does mathematical modeling too, to predict where in China we'll see the best growing conditions on a hotter planet.
We want to know if we plant some vineyards in a given position, whether that position will keep the sustainability in the context of climate change. So what will happen in the next 10 years, 30 years, or 50 years, or 100 years? So to do that, we have to use a coupling of prediction of climate with the different scenarios, and also with mathematical modeling work to see what will be the performance of the wine.
Chinese winemakers are betting that a changing global climate will mean consumer attitudes favoring pure varieties will have to shift in favor of hybrids like these. Above all else, though, they hope to create wines with a distinctive Chinese flavor. Growers from other parts of China are already coming to appreciate these wines.
他们对我们这个中国自己的品种就北红北美他们尝了我们自己做的酒，看了我们的葡萄园栽培模式，他们信心越来越足，他们觉得这个品种一定能做出具有中国特色的葡萄酒。
2023 saw global wine production drop 10%, largely due to severe weather conditions. Chinese producers want to stay a step ahead of droughts and other events to keep their vintages flowing. Leon Lien, John Van Trieste, and Jonathan Kaplan for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out this display in Seoul as the city celebrates its 2024 International Fireworks Festival. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.